Let's switch to the slides. Now that you guys are here, I just want to say thank you for staying all the way to this point and really learning the skill of like YouTube script writing, because I do believe it's one of probably the most important skills to have in content creation today, and it's probably one of the most valuable skills to have. So thank you for investing your time in this video, but let's get into editing. So let's talk about real quick before the specific method on how to edit your script is why is editing important? Because when you master editing, everything changes, right? You cut your writing time in half because you don't just spend all of your time, right? Just like sitting around waiting to write your first draft. You get your first draft out and then you edit the script, right? And that really cuts your time in half rather than writing, editing, writing, editing, writing, and editing. Your brain switches gears and it's just not super duper productive. When you master editing, everything changes, right? You cut your writing time in half, there's less revisions and production time is wasted, and you make your scripts more high quality just because you edit it, right? When you spend more time working on something, presumably the quality is better, right? And this is especially true for writing. So your first draft is for dumping ideas, right? Editing shapes those ideas into a coherent and polished narrative, and a well-edited script makes your audience stay engaged and makes them take action. So how to edit, right? I made the power method for editing your script. So let's get into it. P is for pause, okay? And most people don't really do this. They go straight from writing the first draft to immediately editing it. But after finishing your first draft of your video, I want you to take a break, because this incubation period allows you to return to your script when you go and edit it with fresh eyes. So even after a short break, like an hour, it can really help you spot things that you've missed. And this works because it's easier to identify weak spots when you're not emotionally attached to the writing. Spending some time away from your work can reveal new ideas or better ways to phrase things. Immediately, once you write a script and you edit it, you're like emotionally attached to it. Oh, I spend a lot of time. But really, when you distance yourself, which I think that's the power of the pause, right? When you distance yourself, you're not super emotionally attached to the script. You're not like, your ego isn't in the way. You're like, hey, this is actually pretty good. You get to see it from a third person lenses. When you notice that you're critiquing someone else's video, it's a lot easier to critique it because it's from a third person lens. You are less emotionally attached to it. But when you critique your video, you're just not that great at critiquing your own video, right? There's a lot of blind spots that you have because you're emotionally invested into the video. So that's why it's good to consult experts. It's good to get a third eye, second eye onto your stuff. And you want to act as your third eye onto your content. Take a pause, right? So that's why it starts with the P. So this is based on the incubation effect, right? Because in psychology, this refers to the process where stepping away from a problem or task allows your subconscious mind to continue working on it. So when you're actively focused on something, your conscious mind is limited by its working memory and cognitive biases. And taking a break gives your brain the freedom to explore alternative pathways and associations, which gives you new ideas in return when you eventually decide to edit it. And you go to O is the out loud test, right? Reading a script aloud is one of the easiest ways to catch awkward phrasing or unnatural flow. So pretend you're delivering the script to an audience, and if something doesn't sound right, you want to change it. And this works because it helps you identify sentences that are too long or overly complicated. For example, our company, which has been in the business of providing top quality, innovative solutions to clients for over 15 years, is uniquely positioned to leverage its extensive expertise. When you say it in one line, it feels chunky and to say in one breath, but when you're reading it visually, it doesn't look terrible, right? It doesn't look terrible on the slide. When you revise it, for over 15 years, our company has delivered innovative solutions. So you can see when I edit, I'm not just trying to replace words. Okay, how can I cut this down? What is not necessary that I can really just rephrase it? The revised version is clearer and easier to follow when read out loud. W, work with tools, right? Use editing tools like Grammarly or ChatGPT to clean up grammar and spelling mistakes, right? You can add a prompt, hey, fix all grammar and spelling mistakes. These tools aren't perfect. They can help your script's readability, right? So really, it's like the first round check when you give it a ChatGPT or you give it a Grammarly, or what I personally like to use is Claude. Makes it a lot easier. And why it works? Because these tools catch small errors that distract from your message, right? And they can suggest clearer phrasing for complex ideas. I personally recommend that you use Hemingway. It's a great tool for keeping your writing stupid simple, right? Hemingway has this thing where it grades your writing according to its reading level. So if the writing is a grade 12 reading level, you know that it's a little bit too complex. So you want to keep it to 5th to 7th grade reading level in terms of the writing. And E is to evaluate the flow. So your script should flow logically from one point to the next, right? Each sentence should guide the audience seamlessly to the next idea. So how do you check flow, right? You want to see, does each point connect naturally to the next, right? Are transitions smooth? Is your argument or story building meaningfully towards something, right? You want to check for the flow of the script, right? And this is also one of the major things that I really look out for, right? I'm thinking, hey, does one point link to another, link to another, link to another? And when you can see when I was reading the Sky script, I was really thinking, hey, does everything flow properly? If it doesn't flow properly, then I want to edit it. So one common problem I see is scriptwriters using too many filler words or transitions, right? Some filler words are next, or let's dive into this, or here's a harsh truth. All of these are filler and can be cut, right? When I think about writing a script, or when I think about any writing, if it doesn't contribute to the main narrative, if it doesn't help drive a certain point home, can be cut. You can just completely remove it because it doesn't teach the viewer anything and it doesn't move the story forward. You really, really want to be super particular when you're editing it, right? You want to think about, hey, when if there's an old man sitting over your shoulder yelling at you editing your script, ask, does every sentence have a purpose, right? When you read a sentence, what is the purpose of it? Just like when I was breaking down hooks previously, and you can see every single line in the hook has a purpose, right? So when you're evaluating flow, you're seeing all of these filler words, does the filler words have any purpose? If the filler words doesn't have a purpose, or it doesn't really aim to emphasize anything for the viewer, probably just completely cut it out. Right, so this is one of the things that you want to be very, very conscious of. Those transitions are boring and they can get repetitive fast if you keep repeating them over and over in the same script. You want to think of ways you can add transition points by adding insight, sharing info, etc. Example, bad flow, right? So if you say, so that was everything you needed to know about code emailing. Next, let's talk about code DMs. Kind of like a random transition, right? Very sudden. Next doesn't really add anything, right? Or like not a bad flow, right? Your thumbnail is important. Now let's talk about how to make great intros, right? Seems kind of dramatic, but you can see when I was editing the Sky script or the Instagram script previously, you can see that there's actually a lot of these mistakes that you kind of make within your actual script. This is confusing because there's no clear connection between thumbnails and intros. Why jump topics, right? When you read your own scripts, you're going to see a lot of these mistakes, right? Good flow, right? Thumbnails are the first thing viewers see, so they decide whether to click or not. But even with the perfect thumbnail, bad intro will lose them in seconds. Let's talk about how to hook them with a killer intro. You can see transition is seamless, right? You wrap up a point and you transition to the next one. Connects thumbnails to intros by showing how one leads to the other, creates curiosity about the intro, keeps viewers engaged. Another example of bad flow, right? First, brainstorm your video topic. After that, write a script. Now let's talk about call to action. Feels rushed, right? One of the things when I talk about when you stack too many payoffs, right? You tell them, hey, do this, then this, then this, then this, then this. Stacking too many payoffs, not very good because leaves the viewer confused and you don't fully explain something, right? You kind of just scratch it on the surface level. Feels rushed, you skip steps, doesn't explain why these actions are important or how they fit together. So that's not how you want to write your script. So good flow is, hey, you want to first brainstorm a topic that matches your audience's interests. And once you have a solid idea, write a script that brings your topic to life. Finally, finish your script with a strong call to action to guide viewers to the next step. So with each point, you fully develop it, right? This is just one sentence. It's not fully developed, but you can see the flow is already a lot stronger. You can see each step builds logically on the previous one, creating a clear process. Right, transitions, once you have, finally guide the audience through the steps without confusion. So another example, bad flow, right? It's hard to get viewers to stay past the first 10 seconds. Also, thumbnails are important for clicks, right? Pretty obvious, you jump between problems, not good. If you say getting viewers to stay past the first 10 seconds is tough, but it starts before they even click, right? A strong thumbnail grabs their attention and a hook keeps it. Let's break down how to master both. So you can see there's a clear flow here, right? Links to two ideas, showing how one problem leads to another, and it feels seamless, it feels logical. It's also very easy to read, right? You can see kind of like the way that you read it is just different because the ideas flow so easily, and you can really only identify these mistakes in flow when I read it out loud. When I'm reading out loud, it's a lot more obvious, right? But if you're just sitting there in your office and you're just like staring at the script, like you can't really get out these mistakes, right? It's much more difficult. So tips to create good flow, right? Use transitions, words like because, so, then, next, and finally guide the audience through your ideas. So first brainstorm your topic, then write your script, finally edit into something unforgettable. Explain why it matters, right? Don't just list steps, explain how they connect, right? You need a good title, thumbnail, and hook. Good example, right? Your title grabs attention, your thumbnail gets a click, and your hook keeps them watching. These three elements work together to make your video irresistible. And then you want to think like a viewer, right? Ask yourself, if I didn't know anything about this, would this make sense? Or even better, if you have someone else that you can ask, hey, can you read this and let me know what you think? If this is valuable information. I ask that a lot to kind of my YouTube strategy friends, right? When I'm making videos on retention, when I'm making videos about script writing, is this good info to you, right? Is this something interesting that you watch? Is this a good script? If yes, then I will go record the video, right? If not, then I would just refine it, right? And ask them what their feedback is. Put yourself in the viewer's shoes. If I didn't know anything about this, would this make any sense? Because if it doesn't, then you're going to have to rewrite the script. And R is to record your check, right? Record yourself reading the script using Loom or similar tool, or you can use your camera, right? Watch your delivery, and then you can see issues that you didn't catch while writing, right? Some of the top creators that I know will really sit down, record a script for an hour, and then rewatch the footage, right? And when they rewatch the footage, if they're not super happy with their delivery, or they know that certain parts are awkward, they'll go back to the script, they'll edit it, and then they'll re-record it, right? Because they want to make sure that it's the best quality piece of content that they can post out. YouTube videos take a long time to edit, takes a long time to post. So really, with your script, you want to make sure that it's the best possible state that you can have it to be. So hearing the script aloud shows whether it sounds natural. So watching a performance highlights parts that drag or feel disconnected. So that's the power method. I'm going to give you guys my full editing framework. And this is more so kind of like to think about it high level. And really the best way you can get good is, number one, having this information. And number two, actually implementing it in your videos, right? When you're recording your next videos, when you're editing your next videos, actually sit down and edit it and use these frameworks that are